Have you ever heard of the Mafia? So, it was probably from a movie like The Godfather or Goodfellas. In these movies, the Mafia sounds glamorous with men in suits giving orders to underbosses and soldiers who do their bidding. Then suddenly, there was a loud knock at the door. There was a group of burly men standing in front of them, and Bruno could hear them talking in low voices. His dad looked at him for a moment before answering, "Everything's fine, buddy." As soon as he got downstairs, he saw his dad sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee in his hand. Relief washed over Bruno when he saw his dad was okay. He ran over and hugged him tightly. Bruno frowned, but they weren't strangers. They were your friends. "Why were your friends visiting us in the middle of the night?" His dad took a deep breath and pinched the bridge of his nose. Was his dad mad because he was adopted? Maybe if Bruno wasn't such a bother, his dad would spend more time with him. He thought maybe he should just keep quiet and pretend to be a good little boy who didn't ask any questions. Excited, he ran to the safe and inserted the key. However, he soon came across a photo that made his blood run cold. It was a picture of his dad with the same group of men who had come to their house the night before. Bruno flipped through the rest of the photos, and each one shocked him more than the last. It clicked open, and Bruno leaned in to take a closer look. Bruno's dad froze. For a moment, he looked like he was about to have a heart attack. "How did you find this?" he asked. Bruno shrugged. "I found it in your office. They're my friends. We were just having a little poker night." But Bruno didn't buy his dad's excuse. These men weren't playing cards. They were criminals. Bruno could feel it in his gut. Suddenly, he didn't care about being brave anymore. In that moment, nothing else mattered. They were just a father and son who loved each other very much. Bruno's dad knew he had to do whatever it took to protect his son. Even if that meant leaving the Mafia behind and starting a new life, he was willing to do it. Because in the end, family was all that mattered. He ran to his dad and hugged him tightly. "I'm sorry," his dad whispered. "I never meant for you to get involved in this." Bruno shook his head. "It's okay. I'm just glad you're my dad." He wanted to scream, "I know you're lying," but he didn't. Instead, he stayed silent and stared at his dad, waiting for an answer. His dad stared at the photo for a few seconds before answering. "Where did you see this?" Bruno pointed to the men in the photo. "These are the same men who came to our house." "Who are they?" Then he slowly reached out and took the photo. Bruno held his breath. What did the photo show? What was so shocking about it? He had hoped Bruno hadn't seen the photo, but now he knew there was no point in hiding the truth. "Your mother and I met a dangerous group of people when we were young," he began. "We got involved in some shady stuff, and now they're making us pay the price." Bruno's dad took a deep breath. "I'm sorry, Bruno. I never meant for you to find out like this." To his surprise, there was a folder with photos and documents inside. Quickly, he opened it and started flipping through the papers. But then again, he couldn't stop thinking about his dad's strange behavior. "I told you, it's nothing you need to worry about." In another, he was standing next to a pile of money. And in another, he was surrounded by men covered in tattoos and scars. Who was this man? Bruno suddenly remembered the way his dad had reacted when Bruno had asked about the men the night before. He was scared. No, he wasn't scared. He was guilty. "Now, leave me alone so I can get ready for work." He had always seemed so kind and caring. Suddenly, Bruno heard footsteps coming up the stairs. Maybe he should wait another day to ask his questions. But then he thought, no, this is important. I need answers. Taking a deep breath, Bruno continued, "Why were those men here yesterday?" His dad stiffened slightly, but he quickly recovered. "I already told you, it's nothing you need to be concerned about." He quickly hid the folder and the key and ran out of the study. It was his dad. He was home. "Just leave me alone for a bit, okay?" But Bruno wasn't convinced. His dad stiffened slightly when he heard this, but he quickly recovered and gave Bruno a tight hug back. "They were just some old friends," he lied. "Now how about some breakfast? I'm sure you're hungry." He continued following his dad around the house, which annoyed his dad even more. Finally, his dad snapped. "Bruno, I've had enough. Go to your room right now." Bruno froze and looked down at his feet. Didn't mean to upset his dad, but he couldn't help worrying about him. Slowly, he walked away. But Bruno wasn't so easily dismissed. He followed his dad into the kitchen and continued asking questions. His dad seemed sad and distant that night and didn't even play with him like they usually did. So after school, he snuck into his dad's study. He rummaged through the drawers and found a locked safe. This must contain the answers he was looking for. But he had no idea how to open the safe. And he didn't ask Bruno to go to bed until midnight. Normally, bedtime was 8 p.m. on the dot. He wanted to ask what was going on, but he knew better than to interrupt his dad. After a while, Bruno's dad came back inside, but he didn't look happy. He tried to make conversation, but Bruno could tell something was bothering him. It was hard not to. His dad kept sighing and shaking his head. Bruno's dad immediately stood up, grabbed his gun, and slowly walked toward the door. "Don't make a sound," he whispered to Bruno. "Stay right here." Bruno could hear his voice shaking slightly. Wasn't sure why, but he knew it wasn't good. However, in reality, the Mafia is just another criminal organization that tries to run the world through brute force and intimidation. One day, an 8-year-old boy named Bruno found out how cruel they really were. Bruno had a very normal life. He lived in a nice house with his parents, went to school and played with friends after class. Sure, his father was a police officer who worked a lot of overtime, but he always came home with a big smile and made time for his son. So Bruno never really noticed anything unusual about him until one night everything changed. It was a regular evening. Bruno was playing video games while his dad watched TV in the living room. Then his dad opened the door and stepped outside. Finally, Bruno couldn't hold back any longer. "Is everything okay?" he asked. Bruno woke up the next morning feeling confused and scared. What had happened the night before? Was his dad in trouble at work? Had those men hurt him? "What were those men doing here yesterday?" Bruno asked. His dad sighed, knowing it would be a long day. "You shouldn't talk to strangers, Bruno. You know that." However, Bruno refused to let the subject drop. He could still hear his dad shouting as he retreated to his room. Bruno felt tears stinging his eyes. What had he done wrong? As the day passed, Bruno's sadness turned into anger. Why was everyone keeping secrets from him? Bruno decided he needed answers. Disappointed, Bruno was about to leave when he spotted a key on top of the bookshelf. Maybe this was the key to the safe. The documents contained numbers and names, and Bruno had no idea what they meant. In one photo, his dad was holding a gun. Was his dad a bad person? Bruno couldn't believe it. "Dad, I need to ask you something," Bruno said. His dad looked tired, so Bruno hesitated. Bruno shook his head. "That's a lie. I found this," he said, holding up the photo he had taken from the folder. Looking at the photo, Bruno's dad let out a shaky sigh. His dad looked at Bruno for a moment before answering. His dad looked away, unable to meet Bruno's gaze. Bruno was shocked. Was his dad a mafia boss? Did that mean they were in danger? Bruno's dad hugged him back tightly.